Hey everyone, welcome to Civil Offense. My name is Ahmed Mlih, and today we are going to talk about progressivism and what it takes to conform to the woke mindset. And we'll go into that a bit, but basically the NHL player for the Philadelphia Flyers, Ivan Provorov, if I'm pronouncing that correct, refused to wear a pride jersey for religious reasons. So we're just going to kind of go into the upset that came from that, kind of what it implicates and how that has to do with the progressive mindset. So I'm here with Ashton.
Welcome. Enjoy the show.
Or Wiley F. Coyote, as he wanted to call himself today for some reason, or Weil F. Coyote, I should say.
I mean, that's how it's spelled in the show. It's just like Weil E. Coyote. It's like there's no Y there. People think there's a Y there. I looked it up specifically for this reason.
Okay, I mean, you took your time before the show to do that. I took my time to take my dog out.
You were taking your dog out.
I took like 20 minutes. Yeah, that is something. Okay, maybe I will go over it a little bit. Okay, so like the guy, he was begging me a lot. Okay, he was like pleading to go outside, right? And I was like, okay, I guess you have to go. You have to go. What? Your
dog or your child slave?
If I had to choose, I don't have a child.
No, I mean the Yemeni child that you keep in your basement, of course.
What? Okay, look, my dog's pretty old, but I don't know about this kid. You know, I need to know his specs. You know, is he useful? Okay, but he was begging me, and I take him out, and I think he's gonna go soon because he's like begging me like never before, and he doesn't go, and we're like at the turnaround point. I'm like, dude, are you gonna go? Or are you wasting my time here? I mean, he eventually goes, but man, I don't know why he begs me like that sometimes. If it's not really an emergency, I think he's set his expectations too high because I like to walk. I take him out. I'm like, dude, you know, we'll go for a long walk, but then when it comes time for like a time crunch, he can't get a move on with his dumps. You know what I mean? So like, I guess there's that, but that is the beginning of our show. Here are the plugs for today. Go to my website at ahmedmlih.com and sign up for my email list. Really important. I think if there's something you did today, other than remember to like, comment, and share the show, that is also something very important. Just getting on the email list for updates. I don't spam or anything. It's just, you know, getting you in touch with what's going on. There's new Civil Offense merch. I'm actually wearing a new shirt. I'm gonna get up for this one. I think I have to.
Oh, showing it all off. Breaking news. It's fair.
Breaking news, and it's like, you know, a little TV with hands coming undone from their chains because you are breaking the news, quite literally. Check out Civil Offense on Rumble, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We're on there. We're doing what we do. Yeah. So, anything you want to shout out, Ashton?
No, check his shit out.
Yeah, his show. Yeah, I mean, you're on here enough. You're on here enough.
Yeah, exactly.
To say it's you know, our communal show. You know, really, it's
not common property. Common property.
Whoa. Okay. It's the friends we make along the way here. Exactly. We both own it. Clearly, you do like the work of sitting down, and I do all the other stuff.
Give me a 50% cut or I'm walking off right now. 50%
okay, look, I do more than 50% of the work.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I don't know about this common property stuff. Okay. NHL player Ivan Provorov refuses to wear a pride jersey for religious reasons. Sports media was upset over this, and they were demanding action be taken against him, asking why he's allowed to play. The guy himself said, I respect everybody. I respect everybody's choices. That might be a bit of a controversial way to say it, though, you know, we'll maybe get into that. I don't know. But the hockey player said that following the match. And I from what I saw, the coach was actually getting behind the guy. He's like, I actually respect that, you know, he stands behind what he believes. But if we're getting into this like social justice from that aspect, social justice for who exactly? Because, you know, there's it's sort of like from the view that this is an oppressed minority that is supposed to, you know, be protected, like a protected class today. Basically, the guy is religious, right? They see it as like, oh, well, that's not as important as protecting others, but like protecting them from like what, you know? Because even Jeremy Kaufman said this on Twitter. He said, gays are an extremely oppressed minority, which is why if a single professional athlete dares not support them, they must be punished, which is a very good point. Like, where's this coming from, right?
Yeah, and I think it's just coming from the idea that there's a power hierarchy in the world that has been set up by these institutional structures, and these individual activists have to enact the opposite of the power hierarchy to balance everything out. So the most oppressed minority needs to be most protected against the least oppressed majority. So that in effect leads to a sort of like a one movie, two screens example, where it's just like you see reality, the lens makes you see reality in a different way, where it is all about that like hierarchy of oppression, whereas people who do not see it through that lens just see individuals acting to keep the most oppressed minority on a pedestal to protect them, and because of course it would be a non-binary person, and shout down, cancel, have social consequences and possibly governmental consequences for anybody who speaks out against them.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost like, you know, part of the tenets you have to accept if you're to be sort of like in this religion, you know what I mean, itself.
Or just,
like,
you know, like a good person. Under their
no, but I mean, like, it's really okay, because Orrin McIntyre, he says progressivism will hollow out your religion and wear its skin like a trophy, and that's often a quote that's made whenever there's something like this, in which progressivism can be compared to religion, or uses the example of, let's say, like, what would Jesus do? But really their purpose in it is like, you know, oh, he was like, you know, sort of like a minority of his own time, but except for, you know, you don't see him acting like you guys would. He would want socialism or whatever, and that's pretty much what they're doing with it. In this instance, you know, progressivism, wokeness, whatever you would call it, is itself acting like a religion in which they just basically want to push out this guy's views and put in their own. I mean, like, it's pretty much, you know, accept our tenets instead. You're just not in the proper way here.
Right, and also I want to go back to the point of maybe the socialists do have something about Jesus being a socialist, because, like, he did say, "Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's." From our perspective, that's kind of socialist. If you consider that, like, oh, Caesar's face is on the coin, so it should go to Caesar. But no. Have nothing against the Christians in the audience. But when it comes to that, yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, so kind of speaking on that, I suppose, like, I know you, when we were discussing the show, you were talking about, like, making it about religious freedom. I wanted to ask, you know, what's the importance of religious freedom today?
I think the importance of it is going back to the lines in the Declaration of Independence of, not Declaration, Pursuit of Happiness, where in the real sense that meant, I think, from what I've heard, it's rooted in this whole sort of like Greek tradition of eudaimonia, which is like life satisfaction fulfillment. So they want you to be able to pursue life satisfaction fulfillment. That does not mean happiness in the sort of sense of, I just took a bunch of drugs, I'm pretty happy right now. It's in the sense of, I have lived a fulfilling life by being virtuous, completing difficult tasks, growing my character to a certain extent. And to a great degree that overlaps with religion, because a lot of religion is about virtue, rejecting vice, everything of the sort. So when it comes to this whole aspect of defending religious liberty, whatever sort of moral framework or view that you bring into developing your character, everything like that, you need to be able to have the freedom to pursue it and not allow other people to dictate to you what a moral framework is for you to grow your character, because they could be wrong.
Yeah. So why'd you knock drugs then, Ashton, if you could be wrong on that?
I mean, just like drugs are a vice. If you're taking the like a stoicism perspective, drugs are like a desire and craving and that you have, and the more that you fulfill that craving, the greater craving that it will impart on you. So that is a weakness of character to be reliant on such substances.
Yeah. So in that respect, then we kind of talked about how this is like flipping things on what it previously was, trying to like make it so that there's a new status quo in which you're like taking who you see as the most oppressed people and kind of lifting them, you know, to the like highest like pedestal so that you can justify these views. But why is it that they're doing this in such a matter that they're trying to make this out to be like a religion. I mean, in my view, it's like, okay, they kind of have to bring people into tenets to give them this sort of like their own gospel of it. Like they have to give them like rules to live by in this respect. And sort of like a religion is kind of, in their view, the best way to do it, because what else can bring people to this sort of like belief system other than that?
Well, I don't think many of them explicitly view it in a religious context, because this is the like atheism plus crowd. These are the people that took over the new atheist movement and made it like atheism plus social justice. This doesn't encompass all of them. There are, of course, woke individuals in the Protestant churches and Catholic churches and everything like that. But what I would say is, it's got like the original sin. You were born in a privileged majority. It's got the savior, not necessarily in a individual form, but in a collective form of the oppressed minority, who is, depending on like the sort of sectarian view, can forgive you for your sins. But I'd say the mainstream, no, you're never not racist. But it's got your pathway to redemption in getting woke, being anti-racist, even though you'll never not be racist. But you can do like a full religious analysis on it, but I'd say that's the summary of it, the soundbite.
Yeah, I mean, that actually brings us into some other things, because I did want to review some videos today in which we kind of see examples of this, what we're talking about right now. But I also did want to speak on what you were saying, like with like sort of like, instead of an individual savior, it is a collective, because I've heard this like said to me. People basically see this as like they fear the outside world, so they kind of see this collective as something that gives them security. And they see it as something that like they have like a force backing them of people that kind of think in a way that they can be comfortable thinking, and basically any of their enemies, whatever it is, like are face less of a threat to them, like pose less of a threat to them, because they have this backing them.
Don't have too much to add to that. I think definitely the sort of like social pressure, like social movement behind them gives one more like confidence to act in a way that they possibly wouldn't, or just act in a more confident way online. And then the opposite of that, having a social movement against what you believe, is going to make you shut up. I was going to say an expletive, but I don't know how you want to rate this podcast or edit.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say shut the fuck up. Just like, it's going to make you want to like keep doubt and not speak out against the mob.
Yeah. So here is a video, the first one of today. What happened?
This chick.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I guess we'll just go ahead and watch it. If you have something in it that you want to say, we'll just kind of like break it up if we need to, but it's only a minute long. So let's get to it.
You know what? While we're on the topic of how white people are just f***ing the world up for everyone, you're not one of the good white people. There are no good white people.
There it is.
There are only anti-racist white people and racist white people. Anti-racism is a lifelong project, and the end goal is not for you to be good. It's for society to be good. Decenter yourself. Do the work. It's hard. You're going to get it wrong. But if you are not out there every day actively trying to understand, you're not a good white person. Stop patting yourself on the back. Stop congratulating each other. Stop separating us from the bad white people. Don't sit out there in comments and say, we don't claim them. We are them. We are them. We are the ones shooting up schools. We are the ones raping people. We are the ones enslaving people. We're them.
Yeah. So, first thing, racial collectivism right there.
I mean, is she going to admit to it? Like, is she going to get convicted? Like, is she going to turn herself in for all those crimes?
But it's like, this is the original sin right here. Being white. It's like, okay. But also like, like all the other white people, they're individual, like, anything they've done, I've done it too, apparently. And that's the point you were getting to by joking like that. But like that, what kind of mindset is that? You know, like, okay, first of all, she's not even saying like this is this is explicitly against individualism, of course, because she says this is not about you being good in however you see that. This is about society being good. This is about you giving up for your, like, you know, part of yourself or your entire self for this movement that we've set up so that we can have our societal goals fulfilled and that your goals will be pushed to the side because you don't matter.
Yeah, it's like taken to a great degree, this idea of like a Christian sort of guilt. I don't know how really like much Christians feel it on an everyday basis of just like people live in sin. You'll never get away from sin. You'll always be like surrounded by sin. We live in a world of sin, and to a great degree that can make you feel guilty about yourself in that sort of way. And there's the equivalent to this in you're racist. You'll always be racist. You live in a racist world, and the best you can do is be anti-racist, but at the same time, you'll still be one of the white people who enslaved and everything like that. So it's still got that sort of like religious framework. And this woman is a case of just like, she's been absolutely conquered by ideology, where there is no individual left. There is only the ideology, and you can see it in her absolute performance on the camera, because I disbelieve that she is sincere in her method of displaying this information, because she's just like acting up so much where it's just like, where are those white people? Because yeah, it's just there was a term for it from like the intellectual dark web or whatever. It's like ideological capture or something. But this woman's definitely a victim of that. I feel a pity for her because of how wrong she is and how much that's affecting her life. But I hope she never obtains political power in any sensible way or meaningful way.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it for that video, because you know, we're on to something else that is probably
moving away.
I already see your face. We're about to bring it out.
People are really out here saying that trans Choochie is the inferior product. I'm sorry. We have the designer, expensive, bougie Choochie. Like, you're telling me if someone says, would you like this free paper bag that came with my groceries, or would you like this $35,000 bag? You're taking the designer Birkin, babe. Like, seriously, you're just mad because trans girls don't want to put trash like you in our designer bags.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go real quick with a tweet I saw from Tim Pool, and he said that do you want to place your penis inside a sex organ that facilitates reproduction, or do you want to stick it in your penis into a wound? Because it's a great point, because that's what it is, and you're acting like this this surgery is supposed to imitate something natural. Why?
I want to start off by saying the Australian accent does not lend itself well to male to female trans individuals, just because the American accents, you can kind of get away from it, maybe not Southern, but Australian definitely no. But that sort of idea of you paid a lot for it, so it's good, or something like that, where it's just like, oh, it's designer. It is the imitation. It's like imitation meat. You can have actual...
Dude, it's labor theory of value.
It is. I paid so much more for this mud pie. It's way better than your meat pie. Oh god, that could
this eel head pie
as a comparison. Oh god. But it just reminds me of this one tweet where someone had a pine needle, so like a clipping of like a pine tree, where it was like a pine needle, and labeled it as order, and then took it and compared it to another image where they plucked all the pine needles off of it and like sorted it out and said, this is chaos, and it's like, I want you to seriously consider this. And then you have individuals like this, and was represented in the reply.
Hey, but when you take apart that pine needle and you put all its parts all over the place and it's just scattered, you know, or even if it's organized, you're just tearing it apart.
Yeah,
it's, you know, it's not worth more when you tear it apart. So tell this person right here, when you tear it apart, it's not worth more.
Even now, a lot to do.
Now, this individual, I know you commented on the voice cracks too in the Discord. Yeah, actually, that's the angina, Ashton. That's doing that.
What?
That's what's doing it, not the other thing.
What the? What do you mean? The angina?
That's what's causing it.
Sure. Jesus.
You got your words mixed up.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, like this has to be trolling. Maybe, right? No.
It's probably serious. It's probably serious to the extent where it's just like, well, there are two things. This individual believes what this individual is saying, or this individual is just coping harder than anything that this individual has in this individual's life. And I don't necessarily want to... I'm saying this individual just because like YouTube TOS and like possible personal backlash if this comes out, some blowback. But...
Oh, I don't want any blowback annoying from this one.
I don't. What are you gonna do? Blowback me?
Well, you're gonna need to put something on at that point for that.
Oh, God.
Can't do it anymore.
Please wear rubber. Please wear protection. God. But again, it's the sort of thing of just like ideological capture where this person probably has at least body dysmorphia, probably gender dysphoria, and is thus like suffering from a mental disorder. And this person's surrounded by a society which has taught that the way to solve this is to be a she rather than a he, to spend $35,000 to invert your penis and to create an axe wound in there that you have to dilate like several times a day to keep it open instead of closing itself up as the wound that it is, to eventually have at best a look-alike to have sex with, to affirm your gender and all that sort of stuff, where it's just like, God, I heard Tim Pool discussing like the details of it, and I couldn't help myself but gagging last night, just because he was covering a similar story to this. But it's pitiful. It's sad. It's sad, the state of the world.
Yeah, so I mean, like, this video gives off, you're mad that you can't get laid. You know, I usually try to do it to people that are like mad about other things, but like you're literally saying like, oh, I spent $35,000 and guys don't want to sleep with me. Like you're literally just saying it on camera.
Yeah.
So I don't know, go for it, I guess. Well, with that being said, we are going to go to another video that I think really does display another aspect of how this is, you know, a very cultish group.
I will no longer call a person queer if I don't see them participating in queer politic. You're gay, sure, you're gay. That is not the same as queer. If you haven't put a mask on in a week, not queer. You're just not queer.
It's true.
Not. Queerness is supposed to be radical. It's supposed to be about supporting each other, helping each other, and making sure that we like lift up from the most vulnerable of our community. A lot of you gays are not acting like queers right now, so I'm not going to call you queer.
Okay, yeah, so if you have not put a mask on in the past week, you're not queer. You're just not queer. It's true.
What do you think this person's reaction would be if she was called a queer, just like someone shouted queer at her?
I mean, like obviously, like these. this like mindset is like, oh, reclaiming words for just us to use. But if somebody else uses the word, not even just like, it doesn't even have to be somebody in the street like insulting her with it. It could literally just be us using that word here, and we'll get like in trouble for it, or we'll get like some backlash for it, as you say, blowback. But it's just like, they're not okay with that sort of thing being used. Like, like well, I don't know if I could say it here, the R word. I don't know if I could use that on here and not get like demonetized. I don't know anymore. The F word, obviously. I know I probably, I don't know. But, yeah, it's just those sorts of things that's like, okay, well, we have been oppressed, so we can use this terminology. We're going to limit what you can say because you haven't been through the same things as us. And it's just like, I don't know. This terminology thing is just insane, because they literally just don't like the idea of people speaking their minds at that point, because it's sort of trying to restrict what people can even say. It's not just about these specific terms. I mean, in general, it's like they don't want you saying how you feel about somebody saying what their gender is or what their ideology is, in that sense, like what their, any sort of their identity. If you say something that maybe isn't favorable to what the consensus is on it, you're going to get definitely they're just not going to be so happy about that. And you're going to be, in today's world, there might be some consequences.
Yeah, it's just, it's a mess. It's a mess. It's just like all of these videos just, one, make me more depressed for like the people of the world, but two, make me more hopeful for our political strategies, among other strategies of obtaining liberty, just because these are our political opposites, not necessarily representatives of the political forces against us, but these are the activists on the side for this movement, and they aren't looking too hot. They don't seem too, one, virtuous, but mentally healthy, of good character. But this woman, I assume woman, I'm going to assume woman, but lesbian, probably, mentioned, like, not queer politics, but queer politic, which, like, I'm guessing relates to real politic, it's either German, French idea, I think. I don't know. You could probably ask about it. He would know. But it's just, it's probably, like, all of this stuff is rooted in, like, Marxian sort of thinking, but applied to a cultural context, across intersections. But it's just so depressing to see all this, and her thoughts about, like, you're not queer even though you're gay, and there's a queer politic. It's Marxian from the top down. It's Marxian from the top down.
Well, so I think like there's obviously like a difference in these terms. So like, yes, there is a different thing between being a homosexual and being queer today, because queer is like, it's that like movement. It's that like that like revolution, the cultural revolution right there. So like, but the thing is, today people are going from like being passive on these sorts of things to seeing this and then going like actively against this identity of like LGBT, because it's that queer like movement that they're against, because like people who previously said like, it's not my business, like what people do outside of what I can see, like if they're doing it in the bedroom, even if it's like two guys holding hands in public or whatever, or even like being transgender, like I know people who are more religious. They probably in the past, like before it became more socially accepted, were actually more against it, but then they turned around when society was just kind of like, all right, this is not as bad as, people thought it was. But now they're kind of going back on that. And it's not even necessarily just like the queer movement. I mean, like yes, but like at the same time, like when they see somebody who's like transgender saying pretty much anything about it, it's going to start to like bring into their minds like this stuff again. Like it's going to be pretty easy seeing all this, because they're seeing this cultural movement simultaneously take place with what society, or when society began to accept homosexuals and all that, and more so. So like even now, like you see this, what was it? The like Miss America thing, and the owner of it's like a trans person who is, male. And then you see that and people start to say, this is a clown show. Well, for good reason. And then even people who in the past were like, okay, it's not really my business. They see this and they're like, good grief, what is going on here? and I really don't care about that instance specifically. Like, I don't know. I don't pay attention to it much. It didn't really consume my mind.
Miss Universe was a thing. I knew Miss America was a thing, but not Miss Universe.
It's the Miss Universe thing, isn't it? I don't know. I don't know. But like, whatever it is, I really didn't pay much attention to it. I don't really care about it that much, but I saw it and I'm like, yeah, I can understand why people are going, wow, this is a clown world. Like, same thing as what's going on in the classrooms. Like when people were debating this whole, like, the parental rights and education stuff, and they were like seeing what was going on with some of these teachers. And there were a lot of teachers after the Florida bill passed that were talking about how exactly they're going to indoctrinate the kids and exactly why they need to keep doing it. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're kind of like trying to tell us like, oh, who's doing this out here? Show me who's doing this. And it's like, it's right in front of us. It's happening right in front of us. But you did say you were hopeful about this, and I kind of wanted to know your thoughts on it. Like, despite all these things happening, and there's clear evidence that this is like happening in classrooms, and it's maybe not anymore as much like in Florida, for instance, but elsewhere. Why exactly is it when they have like such a grasp on these institutions? I know they're clowns, but like, why is it that you say, well, I'm still hopeful about this?
It's the sort of thing where it is true that evil can win, but it is not true that evil must win. So there is an opportunity, and even if we don't win, we should try it. We should die fighting. Not to say that this person individually is evil. They could probably act it in some ways. They can probably act good in others. But when it comes to that idea, it's like the effect that this person has on the world, if they were to be in charge of my child's classroom, would be not something that I would like, which is why I'm going to homeschool my kids, and homeschooling rates have soared through the roof since the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns that were instituted as a result of it. But the primary thing in the political sense is these people will probably have like the greater density in the urban areas. I think the urban areas are completely lost. I'm not hopeful about them at all. But the rural areas, I see an opportunity there to have localism, to institute absolute private property there, and all sorts of measures like that, and to have alternative counter-economical solutions towards education, teaching, everything of the sort. To make reference to our agorist friends in the audience. But I want to go back to a point where it's like people don't identify with the LGBT movement, and I know I'm giving you a clip here, but you have probably people coming to not necessarily the realization, but to the position where it's just like, I don't want to identify this. I'm just straight with a dick fetish. I'm not gay or bisexual. I'm just straight with a dick fetish. But I completely forgot my train of thought after saying that. This is a battle we could win, and our opponents don't look too competent.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that is a compelling case for kind of like why it's winnable as a fight. Like societally, I think, it's true. I wanted to point to a recent story that just popped up, and this is happening in Florida right now. Yeah, this has been more controversial. Florida actually blocked a high school African-American studies class, like AP African-American studies. And I had read in one of the headlines that they were saying actually they saw it as a waste of time. And this is saying, like, as presented, the content of this course is inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value. So yeah, that's what they said, lacks educational value. So there has been obvious backlash about this as well, because obviously it's, a racial thing. People see it that way. They're going to say, this is a racist move from Florida, blocking real history and blocking what's really going on. And why don't we do the same with American history? And it's really controversial in the sense that also, like, what Republican is really touching something like this? It's a risky move, honestly, but like it's it's probably going to work anyway. I think really like there's just more of an idea that this will spark about controversy like it is right now. And if you're not as famous as DeSantis, obviously, it's going to impact your career politically way more, and you might get thrown out, or I don't know. But yeah, so this is interesting because you wouldn't see a move like this typically, but they're doing it, and it's sort of like the whole like parental rights in education thing, where they're tossing out some of the ideas in the classroom. It's sort of like like the Stop Woke Act as well. Like they're I assume that's what they're using to say this is in line with Florida law and all that to take this out of the classroom. But yeah, I think that like this brings to attention like what's being taught in schools right now, what's being presented, like is there anything of value being given to children, which I would say for a long time there hasn't been in public schools. And yeah, what are your thoughts on this, Ashton?
I mean, some of the socialists and Democrats that we both know in the university were like posted this information. That's how I found out about it. They're just like, what's he gonna do next? Remove history entirely? Or like they're still teaching European studies and that sort. So, and I don't know the details of the case and everything like that. I don't know. I never took AP African American Studies, or if it's African Studies. No, it's African American Studies. So it's like, I think to a great degree, just the history programs in public schools in the United States are absolutely terrible. Of course, taught by people who are, in some cases, ideologically captured, in most cases, just like run-of-the-mill American liberal. So they have this sort of slant to history, and also it's taught in a way that like just tries to condense down so much history into just like a little tiny package that it just leaves out so much important information. So I'd say this case is one where I don't care to like learn the details of it, but it's interesting, and assuming the details are in line with what I would expect of this class is just like ideologically captured in its entirety. This class is just a way to integrate these sorts of woke ideas, and by woke I mean just like the diversity, inclusion, and equity ideas into the classroom, then this is a moment of like trying to fight back. But it's just like, it's public school. None of the options are good. Like none of the ways that they can teach are good, but it's just like, this is slightly preferable. Not gonna make me want to send my kids to public school here.
Yeah, and just going on the point that you brought up about wokeness being like, the like diversity, inclusivity, and equity. The thing about that is like there are people that are often like, oh, conservatives, or they lump whoever into conservatives really. So like you and I are apparently going to be conservatives after this. They like to call anything they don't like wokeism, and it's like, okay, I can see the point sometimes on Twitter in certain instances, but like, okay, everything's on there, right? Like naturally, but like there is an idea of what this is. They're just trying to distract from this social movement when it comes to people that are against it, or even people that would be more averse to it, like even moderates that would just be like, oh, well, I don't like that if they were to see it, but if they were to hear that it doesn't exist, well, then maybe they might be distracted enough to say, okay, well, then I guess it just doesn't, and then look away from it. But when it comes to, people that are against it, they like to say, oh, you guys are just wrong, and just push it to the side. And then when it comes to people that are in their camp, they're like, oh, no, this is totally happening.
Yeah. It goes from it doesn't exist, but if it did, that would be good, to it does exist and it's good. Yeah. And you're a bigot for pointing it out. You're a bigot for being against it.
Yeah, it's something. And I mean, I already know there's just going to be a whole thing after this, because this just happened like yesterday with Florida doing this. So I already know it's going to be another whole, like the whole don't say gay thing all over again. It's going to be like, probably, I don't know, so don't say black. You could probably make it worse if you want. But yeah, I don't know. It's just
come up with some snappy name for it.
Yeah, it's just going to be the thing that like gets people to look over and say like, oh, what's happening here? And it really, I think what it is they're going to try and make the session in the state about this again, because last time they made it about that the whole time, trying to get people to pay attention to that. I mean, I think this is just going to be another one of those things where they try and look at this. And I mean, it almost seems like I mean, I don't know, the timing on this, even from like the Republican side, is like, what I got as an excuse when I was up there for why they kind of like split these things up is because they don't want too much heat on them. Like, you know, because they didn't want to pass permitless carry last time. And they were like, oh, there's already the Don't Say Gay. Like they call it that anyway. And they're like, oh, there's already the Stop Woke Act. There's already this and that and that. And they're already doing so many things that like they don't want to bring this forward and like, you know, hurt their own political careers or whatever. That's what I got from like the lobbyists and all that, right? That's what they told me. As far as why permitless carry wouldn't be a thing. And then it seems almost like they want to keep bringing these like cultural issues to the session every time, like instead of all at once, like kind of spread them out, if anything, so that they keep being discussed. I don't know. I mean, like, this isn't to say that like cultural issues aren't a problem right now, but to say like the social issues are like spread out to the point where there's something every year that could have been solved probably before. I'm kind of attacking like, you know, like the main players in this, questioning like, why are you spreading it out so much? Why is this happening like this?
I'd say just like do it all at once. Do it all at once. It's going to stay in the news cycle for maybe 2 weeks, and then something new will happen. But when it comes to that sort of thing, I forgot the train of thought that I was previously going down. But this spreading it out like, oh, we can't have permitless carry. Oh, I remember. This is sort of where our agorist friends have a point where like the traditional political process is inept at making change in the world in a positive way. Of course, when it's taking away liberty, of course, when it's expanding taxes, intervening more into your lives, regulating your property more, stealing your property more, they are going to, of course, be very adept at that. And even in an efficient way, they're going to be adept at it. But the positive change cannot be made through the traditional political processes, which is why we have to go outside of tradition in that sort of way. But there are still some political processes that are useful, such as the local processes. But Ron DeSantis, he's a sort of guy. On the cultural level, he's somewhat there. On the political level, he's not doing everything. There's the idea of like, don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. I wouldn't necessarily say he's good yet, or really, not necessarily at all, but good like in the tiniest part where he's not Andrew Gillum, and he wouldn't have been found. Was it meth or cocaine or both? Just like drugged out with a male prostitute, cheating on his wife in a hotel with some floor crack or whatever.
I mean, to be fair, you know, if there's like a Democrat in office and COVID came around, you would have seen more of like these are the policies you're going to see in the state, and it would have been worse off, like as far as like the lockdowns and all that, way worse, because I mean, under DeSantis, it was like a month. I mean, not that that's good or anything. And I mean, there were also, I mean, like, and I will say, because, you know, like there were curfews around the time of the riots in 2020, which probably wouldn't have happened under Gillum, but still, like that was, I mean, you know, what kind of exchange are you making there for that? I don't know. I mean, like either way, the government's going to government and it's going to lock you in your home. Either way is my point. But, you might get a Republican that's like, okay, well, we'll lock you in your home this way. And then the Democrat that's like, we'll lock you in your home this way. Obviously this way was better, just for the sake of like, there was, you know, Florida was seen as this like bastion of like, you know, freedom, you know, whatever, what that may mean to people. And there were people able to like, you know, go outside without being followed. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like this overall, like, it just seems like it's more of a distraction than anything, like what we're seeing here with this. Like if they really wanted to do this from the beginning, they could have. but it's happening now. So, and it really seems like they strategically plan the way they're going to do these things, like with permitless carry. I mean, to have that told to me that like they're going to spread it out to like maybe it'll happen next session because of the way that like they're going to pay attention to what public feedback is and try and make it so that like they're orchestrating this like better view of themselves in the public, at least somewhat, or trying to make the drama a certain way so that people think a certain way about the state. I mean, like all this coming together, it's like it really, like, what effect are people having in the political process, which I don't think people, like, you know, public opinion and all that really is having an effect. I think it's just like they manufacture what they want them to believe and then sort of like act in a way that'll continue them believing, or like making them believe a certain way about the state. You know, they do it through like news companies and all that, like media organizations. And I mean, like overall, like we're paying attention to this right now because I just know like this has to do with like the social progressivism and all that. And like, there are people who want to push that regardless of whether it's in schools or not. They just want to push it on kids. But like the state itself in this thing, we're just looking at this because this is some sort of like, you know, big like action in their view being taken, and they're going to like try and make their own political narrative because of this. I want to more so pay attention to that aspect of it, like that, like what they're trying to make the propaganda do to this, as opposed to the thing itself, because ultimately I think like they're just going to do whatever they think is going to orchestrate society the way they want it to be.
I think they do care about like public approval polls, but it's in such a way where, again, it's like the idea of like manufactured consent. That's definitely true. Everything is like controlled, and everything is set in line to regain them political office, to keep them in power. And that's one of the major reasons why the Republicans never really acted on Roe, because it was so good to campaign on that we're going to end Roe v. Wade. And once they did have power, oh, well, you know, we can't necessarily do it outright. We got to do yada, 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 yada. Or like confirming, or like anything that they campaign on, they're not actually going to do, because that just makes it just like one less thing to campaign on. You already fulfilled your purpose, so like we don't need to vote for you. So yeah, is what they think voters are going to say, and to an extent that may be true. It just gives a perverse incentive to these elected officials, not that they're legitimate for being elected, these officials to act in a way against democracy.
Yeah, I mean, I think really what it is, like when they try to get any sort of public approval, like I said, I mean, it's more so that the people won't, I mean, do anything that goes against the state. But like, they're more so like, when they try to sort of do that to people, they do it more with like talk than action. Yeah, well, let's say they pass a law that says something in it. I mean, most of the time it's just going to be something that really doesn't matter to them, that like they can just toss out to get people to think like, wow, the government's doing something for me, something like that. Like it'll more so be like, even if they give them money or whatever, like for something, or try to give them some sort of service, it's literally just to maintain like their ignorance as far as this goes. I mean, just to keep them complicit. If not, then they'll use scare tactics, and they'll try to use other laws to say like, look at what's happening in the culture, and look at what we have to do here. Yeah, because I mean, like this fight culturally, like, okay, there's an actual cultural fight happening outside of the government, but don't you think the government's incentivized to continue that, because it almost like distracts people from what's really happening in the first place? So I mean, you can say like, oh, this was the origin of it, or that's the origin of it, whatever it is. I mean, the government wants it to keep going.
Yeah, it's sort of, one could either take the view that they're taking advantage of it, or they manufactured it. I think this cultural fight has been occurring for longer than recent history. Just in other forms, it's evolved, everything of the sort. But I take the view of the government has contributed to it as well as taken advantage of it, because if the political process was removed entirely, then these people wouldn't have the ability to rule over the others' lives. They could live how they want. It would just be a cultural exchange sort of thing, and there would be a lot less tension. But because of the political process that exists, where people have the ability to rule over others' lives, where the majority dictates their will over the minority, you're going to have a situation where that breeds resentment. You're going to have a situation where that breeds the desire for national divorce. And I'm so glad that people have brought that idea to the mainstream, where that is now in the heads of, I don't know how many people, but enough to make the corporate press want to talk about it and disregard the idea.
In your view, what is it that is like sort of pushing the government to continue this political discourse, despite there being a potential for national divorce, and increasingly so? Like, why would they want to continue and not ease tensions if this is going to be the outcome?
Well, these are the same people who think they could balance a pencil on its tip when it comes to foreign intervention into other countries, where it's just like, this is like a very careful process. We need to arm Ukraine enough to fend off Russia, but not too much that they feel enough that they can aggress against Russia, or that Russia should invade. And look how that went. Though that may have just been talk, and that may have been the plan from the start. I definitely wouldn't suggest that at all. But same thing with every other like foreign war of the United States, where it's just like, we're going to get in, we're going to solve things, or we're going to build a country, or recent foreign war, I should say. We're going to build a democracy. We're going to spread the roots of democracy and let it flourish in these other countries, is just an absurdity. But the same sort of political calculus I think they're playing here, where they're going to utilize it, but if it gets too hot, then we'll stop utilizing it as much. Like, we're going to tamp down on this idea of national divorce through any means, through control of social media, through soft power of the corporate press, which is of course free and absolutely independent of the state, 100%. But they think they can leverage this for their political power, because it energizes voters to a great extent.
Yeah. So ultimately, I mean, where do you think this leads in the short term with it? I mean, like, before the national divorce, if that is to be the case, I mean, like, it's seemingly, again, increasingly likely. But with increasing tensions, what do you think we'll see just in the short term with all of this tension going on?
I don't think that they're going to return to the strategy of leveraging extremists who identify as, like, say, Antifa. But I do think they're going to just have the strategy of just the same playbook through COVID. These are extremists, these are conspiracy theorists, these are people who we don't like, and you shouldn't listen to them at all. And I don't know how effective that will be, but I think if it were to come to a point where there was a political threat in the realm of national divorce, or removing them from political power, if there was like a really, really anti-establishment person that was gaining steam, then I think we would see our next crisis in the form of climate lockdowns, in the form of possibly another outbreak or anything of the sort, where you'd have a reason for everyone to either come together, or you'd have a reason for everyone to be under the boot of the state. I think climate lockdowns would not be as successful, of course, because of how many people are opposed even just to the like mere idea of it, rather than like it even coming into reality. But
I mean, climate lockdowns, they don't need all that. It would really just be like increasingly like stricter policies regarding climate, like Green New Deal sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just have to implement something like that.
I see another pandemic in the future.
I mean, I'm not saying it won't be a pandemic. I'm just saying like, oh, maybe it won't be that you're like locked in your home from the beginning, but it'll be things like, I mean, like even right now they're going after gas stoves. So it might just be that they're going after your car soon. It might just like, I don't think that's necessarily not the case. They're just going to try and push other things that in your life you're already using now, but they're going to say it's harmful for the environment. We need to switch to this. We need to switch to that. I mean, even over time, like they'll just, try and find and not necessarily like better alternatives, but they might try and implement alternatives to what's existing now. And it probably won't even be like necessarily sweeping. It could just be in one area and then the other. And then eventually that's just
probably urban centers.
And then that's just how it works.
But I'd say it's like they're always going to be political opportunists. They're always going to be acting in their own interest, in accordance with their own will, and that will be an empirical study by them. Like, what will be in my political interest? What opportunities can I take? So it's a shame that can't be known prior to anything occurring. So you can't make concrete predictions about it. But in that sense, I'm kind of depressed about like the future in terms of like there being another pandemic. But I think even if it is extremely dangerous, like say it was COVID times 10, I think a lot of people are still going to be okay, lockdowns, but voluntary lockdowns. Like, we aren't going to like mandate this stuff again, but yeah, I'm staying home. I'm gonna keep my kid out of school. We're gonna hunker down, and I'd say that's a fair response, definitely on the individual level. But then that's just speaking to the Republican crowd who got semi-woke. The people in the middle are probably going to lean towards like mandated lockdowns, and the people on the left to far left are definitely going to go for mandated lockdowns. So again, don't live urban. Never live urban. Leave the cities.
That's a good point. Well, with that, I think we went over quite a bit today. We made quite the transition, if you will, throughout this episode.
I got titty.
And with that, I think this has been good as far as just talking about, like, I mean, we pretty much went all encompassing with progressivism in a lot of ways here. I would hope to just talk about this more in the future if there's anything like more pressing about it. I hope we didn't even leave any gaps or any of that here.
Probably the wokeness, to give everyone a definition, is adherence to diversity, inclusion, and equity. There, that's your definition of wokeness. Use that instead of like some free floating arbitrary lefty idea.
Yeah,
there you go. Oh, and also, it looks like I've either not taken a shower for days or I just took a shower. I'll leave that ambiguous as I have the entire episode.
Do you use cold water or hot water when you shower?
Warm.
Just like room temperature, a little bit up?
Slightly higher than my body temperature. My girlfriend likes it extremely hot, but that's scalding and I hate it. Yeah.
I used to use hot water a lot. Now I've been trying to use cold water.
My thing is like, I do like somewhat fasting. So it's just like when I wake up in the morning, my body temperature is so low, I need to raise it.
I've actually been doing some fasting myself. It's like intermittent fasting. Yeah. I had to ditch it a little bit because I didn't mention this at the beginning of the show, but I was just in Miami. So I hope I have a nice glow from it, but I don't know. I felt like I looked like I got some sun, so that's nice.
I'd just have a sunburn.
I like how we're just going on like an after show thing as if we hadn't left like with an outro or anything. I don't know. This is usually like beginning of the show stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, anyway, you can follow me on Twitter at Civil Offense or at AHMLIH. I am on there posting about this stuff all the time. If you haven't seen, I've actually like quote tweeted some of these videos before I put them on the show and gave some of my opinions on them. So if you'd like to see that, go ahead, follow me there. I'll be doing more of that. Ashton, any closing ideas or anything?
You're probably gonna make clips out of this stuff, and don't go too hard on me.
Wow.
On the shit that I said.
So don't repurpose what you said if it makes you look too bad.
Don't just like make a super cut.
Look,
of all
the super cut was great. Funny. Okay, I made a great super cut before. Basically, we're autistic. Is your number one quote on there?
It is.
Well,
it's the only thing I'll be known for.
Yeah, well, I that's a great thing to be known for. But anyway, with that, we had a great time here. Thank you everybody for watching. Just make sure to like, share, comment, everything like that. Just sign up for my email list. That's also really important again. And that is all. Civil offense is the key to winning. Thank you.